selecting former NBA coach Michael Malone to be their new head coach. Malone comes to the Tar Heels having won the 2021 NBA title and 510 games in 12 seasons with the NBA. It was the 2023 NBA title, actually. Malone hasn't coached in college since he was an assistant coach at Manhattan University in 2001. So what should year one expectations be for Michael Malone? What do you think, Jay Will?
I mean, look, I think to compete for an ACC championship or finish in the upper tier of the ACC and to get to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament, you know, if there's anything that we've seen, guys, is that we just saw a Michigan team, Stephen A., that was 8-24 2 years ago, right? North Carolina was not in shambles like that. If Caleb Wilson doesn't go down, they probably make a little bit of a run. So obviously right now it's all about how quickly can you onboard talent. They've lost a couple of big-time recruits, I think, due to some lacking of communication there. So I think it's about the staff that you're able to hire. How quickly can you pick up on recruits, considering today the portal opens? But this is North Carolina basketball. I'm going to tell you something else, Stephen A. There's some real tension that comes along with Mike Malone. Like, I think this is a good hire. The next couple of hires and how they invest in his staff and the talent around him are going to be critical, because getting the right people in the door to be coached properly by him is going to be the determination on whether they reach expectations. But this is North Carolina basketball. I think they'll bounce back pretty quickly.
I think they will bounce back pretty quickly as well. I don't think it's a good hire. I think it's a great hire. I think the man knows basketball. Obviously, he's a champion. He coached grown men for 10 years in Denver. They were perennial contenders before they finally kicked down the door and won a championship a few years back. And he was considered one of the best coaches in the NBA. And so now you're talking about shoving aside his basketball acumen, his ability to coach players. The fact that these are youngsters trying to get to the next level, to get the bag, is entirely different than cats who are there and have the bag. If he could deal with that on the NBA level, he could certainly deal with it on a collegiate level. My trepidation is in one thing and one thing only, Jay, and that's in his ability to recruit. Because as I said earlier when Sean was on the show with us, I said, be very clear, America. North Carolina did not fire Hubert Davis. Duke did. John Schreier did. That man and the job that he is doing, there was such a flagrant discrepancy between Duke's program and North Carolina's program over the last 3 years that simply could not stand. John Schreier walked through the door and went 27-9 his first 2 years, each of his first two seasons, before winning over 30 games last year and winning 35 this year. I mean, went to a Sweet 16, an Elite 8, a Final Four. This is what he's done. You cannot have North Carolina get bounced out in the first round back-to-back years or missing an NCAA tournament altogether when you're Duke 8 miles away. Jay, you know this better than me. Same parties, same friends, same peoples, 8 miles apart. It's a rivalry, an epic rivalry. You have to live up to your end of the bargain. Duke is doing theirs. You got to do yours. So North Carolina got to make sure they get Mike Malone that NIL money, and he has to make sure to utilize it properly and appropriately so he can be on par with Duke, because his measuring stick is going to be measured by how comparable it is to what's happening 8 miles up the road. Go ahead, Jake.
Stephen A., I can recruit if I have resources to recruit. So I would one-up your hesitation. My hesitation is the administration. Okay. The administration, we're at a time and age, SA, where, you have a lot of private equity that's trying to come into this space because they feel that, and I'm not saying this towards North Carolina, but a lot of schools, athletic directors are good at, what they do as it relates to, intellectual studies of school, but they're not all great business people. So right now you're seeing a lot of athletic directors trying to operationalize their athletic programs, and that's what needs to happen. North Carolina needs to unleash their athletic program, operationalize it, and give him the resources to bring in the top-tier talent.
I'm surprised neither of you brought up his temperament, which I love. It's kind of Danny Hurley-esque. Like, he can get red on the sidelines. Yes, he's not this more mild-mannered person like we saw Hubert Davis.
Tension, Shay.
Right.
Real tension.
Real tension, which I tend to love, but I'm not playing for him, so I'm interested to. Good morning, Jay. How are you? When we think about Michigan basketball, obviously.
Good morning, Shay. I'm glad I wore my turtleneck yesterday, Stephen. It was a little chilly out here yesterday.
Yeah. I saw you struggling a little bit, but it's all right. It's all right. You're all right now. Now.
He's back in it now. All right, so when we think about Michigan basketball, obviously the Fab Five comes to mind, but they were never able to win a championship. Now Michigan has won a championship for the first time since 1989. Was this Michigan's best college basketball team ever?
You know, it's hard for me on the day that Michigan won the national championship to, diminish this team and what they've accomplished, right? 37-3 in the regular season, 19-1 in their conference. I mean, just sheer dominance. Their margin of victory has been dominant. So I think we're talking about one of the most dominant seasons. And, but we're also talking about a team that has had 5 transfers as starters. And this is a real thing, Stephen A., happening in college basketball and college football. Fan bases are always going to take the win, always going to take the title and say, yeah, we won the title. But it feels somewhat different. It does feel different. A lot of these guys came from different places, and that doesn't diminish Dusty's ability to get them all to mesh and to have chemistry. That is hard as hell to do in one single season. And it takes a lot of luck, and it takes a lot of the right coaching and schematics and tactical strategies in order to get that done. But to me, the gold standard of Michigan basketball is 1989. I mean, Bill Frieder was literally, he left. He left to go to Arizona right before the tournament. Steve Fisher becomes interim head coach at that time. They're a 3 seed, guys. And Glenn Rice, big dog Glenn Robb, goes on one of the biggest runs we've seen in tournament history. He averaged 31 points. They had a close game to Xavier in the first round, barely got by that. They beat 2 seed North Carolina. They had one of the most dominant runs, and each game mattered so much. So for me, for that to be the first time Michigan basketball won a national championship in that measure, where to this day, you look at big dog Glenn Robb, like Michigan basketball. Now look, people are going to say Elliot Cadell, fine. You're like, where did North Carolina here? You're going to say Yaxel Lindenberg. Yeah, he's one of theirs, but UAB, where was he at? Adai Mera, where was he at? But big dog Glenn Robb, like that's Michigan basketball. So for me, 1989, still the best ever, still the gold standard.
I don't think you're wrong, but let's simplify it a little bit. Let's lean on our boy Jalen Rose, member of the Fab Five. All right? Beautiful seeing them in attendance together at the Final Four. We know what culture changes they were, what they mean, what they'll always mean to college basketball, to the culture. But here's the deal. Lindenberg comes out, and during the Sweet 16 or whatever, he stirred the debate by saying his team might be the best in program history. Jalen Rose gets quoted. What does Jalen Rose say? Okay, you want to have that conversation? Go cut down the nets. If they go and win it all, of course, it's time to have that conversation. 89 versus this team. By the way, I miss my man Jalen Rose being here. I hope to see you soon, my brother, especially with the Pistons, but I'm still rooting for my Knicks to beat y'all. But that's a different story for another day. Here's what I got to say about this. Jalen Rose had a point. He challenged Michigan to go and cut down those nets. But up until last night, it was Jalen Rose that was reminding everybody. He wasn't saying the Fab Five was the standard because they didn't deliver the national championship. He was saying the 89 team, Jay, was the team. And who is that team? Let's remind everybody about who was on that damn team because we need to make sure that we're clear. Glenn Rice, Ramil Robinson, Lloyd Voigt, Terry Mills, Sean Higgins. Rice, Voigt, and Mills had lengthy careers in the NBA. Glenn Rice was a sniper now. We talk about shooters today. Of course, Steph Curry and them changed the way. Did you see Glenn Rice play? That brother was special now. And this was not a scrub. Big dog, like you said, Big Dog Robinson was big time. No doubt about it. This brother was sensational. But it takes a Glenn Rice to sort of offset what a big dog Glenn Robinson was giving to you back in those days, okay? Because Glenn Rice was that kind of dude.
Yep.
So when you look at it, yes, we just heard the coach. Leonard Boyd was hurt, and we get that part. And he was a big-time player, and he really skilled, knows the game of basketball, et cetera, et cetera. He was not Glenn Rice, okay? You look at Cadeau and these cats. They can play. You got it. But when you looked at Higgins and Mills and Voigt and those boys, and Ramil Robinson was no joke either. I'm just saying that 89 team was something to behold. So, again, Michigan, second national title in program history, no doubt about it. They deserve all the credit. Nobody will ever be more popular than the Fab Five at Michigan. I don't give a damn who it is. Ain't nobody, they ain't achieving that kind of popularity, all right? But when you look, and then we got to take into account the careers, the Jalen Rose, the Chris Webbers, the Juwan Howards of the world, and what they brought to the table with their NBA careers. But the 89 team is still going to come across as the standard, because when you look at this championship team compared to that championship team, you give them a lot of love and credit for the season that they had together. But it wasn't just the season and the run that Michigan had in 89. It was some of those players led by Glenn Rice. And that's why I would give the 89 team the slight edge. It's a slight edge, but it's an edge.
Yeah. And Stephen, so it's fair to say we both agree here on that, on the 89 team. I haven't had a lot of coffee yet this morning, kind of combine names there, Ramil Robinson and Glenn Rice, and put them together. It's fine. All I'm saying is Glenn Rice had one of the most dominant runs we've seen in the history of the tournament. One of the most dominant runs. So for me, look, Elliot Cadeau doesn't take anything away from that team. They had an exceptional season. We're talking about comparing one of two teams. And just like you, to me, the gold standard is still 1989. Steve Fisher, interim head coach, Glenn Rice, one of the most incredible runs we've seen in tournament history.
So when you look at Michigan, this squad, right? It was 5 transfers that started. That has been pointed out. And when we talk about the transfer portal, the Wild Wild West has come up in terms of what has happened now in college basketball. However, ratings are up, and you could argue in the tournament you are getting a very good brand of basketball because you have these higher seeds winning, etc. Where is men's college basketball right now? Is it in a good place?